All right. I don't know what happened, but we're back. Okay, so where was I? What was I even talking about? So yes, I told my uncle that I wanted to be a singer. And when I told him that I wanted to, I mean, sorry, an actress. I told my uncle I wanted to be an actress, and he was like, act right now. And I'm like, again, I don't have a script. I don't know what you want me to do. And like he made fun of me and was like, well, you want to be an actress, but you're not acting. And so in that moment, even though I know he was just joking with me, even though I know he was just playing, I still took that personally. And I really believe like, okay, Alecia, you don't have the bravery, you don't have like the cojones, I don't know what word, like you don't have it to be an actress. So maybe you should just not pursue acting at all. And we all have those moments in our lives where little things like that stick with us. Like I remember that moment. I remember being put on the spot. I remember feeling stupid in my dream, feeling dumb. And I know my Uncle Brian loves me. Like, and I know he was just playing. But in that moment, it felt like I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the things to be good enough to do that thing. You know what I mean? And so we start to wonder, like, is it really possible to reach this dream? Is it really a viable, option for ourselves? Like, can we really do what we dream of? Is our dreams that we dream back in the day, are they childlike, or is it really possible? Right. And so again, our imaginations ran wild as a child, but I feel like we all had a moment where someone was like, nah, whether it be friends, family, your peers. This is the thing, like people criticizing your dreams and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be like blatant and be like, oh, you suck, you're the worst. Like it could be little side things, right? It could be something someone says in jest. It could be something like your parent rejects you, or rejects this idea of you chasing a dream. It could be, you looking at the outlook of, the possibility of you being hired in the future, and you're like, oh, well, I can't act because I'm not going to have no money to pay bills. We create these prisons, even though we think they're safe, but we create these prisons to live in. And our childhood self is like, I want to play, like I want to have fun. So what happened? Like what happens when we get older? Like what happens to that childlike wonder and excitement and belief? Like that just seems to like disappear overnight. The thing is, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually. Like I said, it could be something that somebody says and it sticks with you and you're like, because the thing is, rejection hurts, criticism hurts, being ostracized hurts, being different. For a lot of people is like, oh, I don't want to hang with you. And let's be real, kids are mean. Like kids are cruel. Kids can be so mean. I know when I was younger, I experienced bullying, and yeah, it was not a fun time. And so you want to do what you can do to avoid being put out there, to avoid being ostracized and hurt and all this other stuff. So you're going to do what you can to not be different, to not be outside of this idea of what is acceptable. So once that idea of what is acceptable has been formed, you try your hardest to fit into that thing. Just like this idea of like the in crowd versus the out crowd, right? What does it mean to be in the in crowd? It means that you look like this, you dress like this, you assimilate, you join the majority, right? And so anything different, anything outside of that, kids don't know how to process different. And the truth is, they probably have been taught what is normal. They have been normal. They have been taught what is acceptable. They have been playing this game of being acceptable and being easily digestible, and it's been beneficial for them. And I get it, because survival. But when we start to try to fit ourselves into these boxes that don't necessarily fit us, that's when we start to lose a part of ourselves. And so a lot of people feel like to get back to their true selves, they have to put on more or they have to do more. I really feel like it's taking off things, right? It's taking off this idea of what is good enough, this idea of what's acceptable, this idea of, what is successful, changing all that, changing the definition, and changing the idea of what all that is important if we're going to get back to our childhood selves. So the older we get, the more trained we are to care about what other people think. Like I said, survival, but also like you want to please your parents, you want to please your family. There are people who we spoke to a couple a few days ago, and her mom wanted her to go like the doctor route. And she was like, nah, I don't want to be a doctor. And, our parents are well-wishing. They want us to be successful. They want us to see this bright future that they have planned for themselves, not planned for us themselves. And I get it. And so because we want to be accepted, we want to be loved, we want to be taken care of, we want to be spoken well of, we tend to put on these things that don't necessarily fit us for the sake of pleasing other people. So, like I said, kids can be cruel. But when you're in school like this, we've been trained to get approval, the honor roll. We got to get on the honor roll, like, so I can get pizza. You know what I mean? Or we got to read these books during the summer, so we can get pizza. These checking off this list, like, and it's teaching us to check off these boxes in our own minds, in our own lives, right? Like this definition of what success is changes based on the rewards that we receive. We see the people who put whose work is put in front of the class on the board because this is like amazing work. And we look at our work and it's like, dang, our work is subpar. So we're trained to think that seeking people's approval is the way to go. That's the only way to success, right? And it's wrong. Like, that's not the only way to success. While I do, think we should, try to get good grades and try to learn, I find it detrimental to a lot of kids' self-esteem, especially if they don't learn the way that they're teaching, especially if they don't fully understand why we're doing this, right? Kids don't know that, okay, this grade is not who I am. It's like, no, for 12 plus years, we're taught that this grade is who I am. And so I feel like that aids in this want to, I guess, be acceptable, like this constantly chasing affirmation and approval. So yeah, so we see the honor roll, we see we're social creatures. So we want to belong, we want to join, we want to see our paper on the board to be like, good job, Alecia, you did wonderful on this paper. And also, like I said, kids can be cruel. Like, we can have a bad response to our dreams. Like, we can be singing our little heart out. I remember in elementary school, me and my friends put together a singing group, and we'd be on the dirt, ground, and we'd be performing. We're trying to be like the next Destiny's Child. Like, that was it for us. And a lot of people thought that what we were doing was silly. Like, a lot of people were like, what are y'all doing? Like, y'all are never going to be Destiny's Child, And even though what they're saying is true, we will never be Destiny's Child because there's already a Destiny's Child. It doesn't mean that my dream to sing, or our dreams to be, at that point anyway, because these people have gone on to be amazing people like doctors and, professionals. But for me, and I don't know if that dream is still there for them, that they still want to be a singer, but that dream for me is still there. And it would have been beneficial if someone said, it's okay if you're not Destiny's Child, you can just be yourself and be, a great artist. So we also only dream as far as we can see. Right. So when we're young, we're like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be, I don't know. I want to be a singer. I want to be a writer. If you don't have any people in your immediate circle that are writers, or parents who are writers, or friends' parents who are writers, or astronauts and all this stuff, you begin to only dream as big as what you see. And that makes sense. Like, if you've never seen mountains, you wouldn't know they existed. Right. So if you never knew that someone could be a professional writer, you would never aspire to that. Right. Because you're constantly hearing, oh, writers don't make money. Artists don't make money. You're going to be a starving artist. Like, and not even understanding the history of artists and how they had patrons and people to pay for their art, and how people actually earn a living as an artist. If no one's teaching you this stuff, then you're going to believe that it's impossible to be a full-time artist. And that's with anything. So it's not just about artists. It's about whether you want to be a doctor, whether you want to be a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you only dream as far as you can see. So even if adults tell you that it's impossible, like, you see them, they're like, nah, just, and it's no disrespect to anybody out there who's working a 9-to-5, because do what you got to do, right? Like, I would be doing what I have to do too, if it wasn't for, COVID right now. So, people suffer through jobs for years that they don't really enjoy. And we think that our lives have to look like that too. We think like, oh God, I got to suffer the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, just to enjoy like retirement, maybe, if that even exists for our generation, right? Like, this idea of suffering and not being able to enjoy what you do has been drilled in our heads from like a young person. It's like, okay, so that's not going to work out. That's not going to work out. So you want to be an artist? Okay, no, that's not going to work out. What are you going to do instead? And it's unfortunate that we start to believe these things. So we create this false sense of security. We think that, oh yeah, like, I'm going to graduate, get a good government job and work, and then retire, right? But we know that the job market is not secure in the least. There's shutdowns. There is a pandemic happening where people lose their jobs, lose their sense of security, lose their retirement, lose their 401ks, all this stuff that we put so much stock into and so much belief in safety and security, we're starting to realize that's not even a thing. That's not even true. And so is it risky to dream? That's a real question I've been trying to like wrestle with myself. Is this really the more risky situation than getting a 9-to-5 and possibly losing my job? I mean, technically, right off the bat, if I get hired every 2 weeks or however often you get paid, you get a paycheck. But what else are you risking by doing that? You're risking losing your dream. You're risking losing whatever security you have by going for this dream. And why can't my chasing my dream be as viable as, you know, signing up to get a 9-to-5? You know what I mean? Like we're taught to believe these things. And people tell us that we're childish to dream. They say, get a real job. You know what I'm saying? They say, grow up. They say, get real. They say, what about your safety at your job? Right? And we believe these things like, okay, so being an artist isn't a real job. Being a writer isn't a real job. Being an actor, producer. Meanwhile, these people with these real jobs are consuming art all the time. They're always listening to music. They're always watching TV. So why isn't that considered a real job? Right? Like that's work. It's creative work. A lot of times is not like, yes, there are some things that go on behind the scenes, but it's a work of the heart. It's the work of the soul. Like that takes everything out of you. Right? So why can't we respect art jobs? Why is it always looked down on? And it's because people believe that to be an artist, you're suffering or you have to suffer, you have to struggle, or like, you know, oh, people even make a joke, oh, they're an artist, like LOL. Like, why is that an LOL? I don't understand. Like, are you trying to be shady? I don't get it. Like, no, they're an artist, period. You know, that's what they do professionally. Like that should be good enough. So we should become more childlike is my whole point. Children don't ask for permission. They don't ask for permission. They ask for forgiveness. Or they find out that they have to ask for forgiveness, right? We teach them what they should ask for forgiveness for. We teach them to ask for permission. Kids will get a crayon in their hand and mark up your whole wall. And that whole wall will be their canvas, right? They're little artists. Like they're so creative. And like, it's like, why can't I draw on the wall? You know what I mean? They don't ask for permission. They just do. And we shape their minds to be afraid to take that first step. And make them ask for forgiveness. I mean, in all fairness, if somebody was marking up the wall, yes, like, I can understand why parents get mad at that. But from those little things, we teach them like, no, like you don't do this, you know? And so we make them afraid of the reaction that they're going to get from trying something new. Children follow their curiosities, almost to their detriment. We have to tell them like, no, don't touch that. That's hot. If you touch that, you'll burn yourself. And a lot of times babies are hard-headed because they are curious. They want to touch things. They want to put things in their mouths. And so if we tell them that lemon is sour, they're not going to like it. They're still going to put it in their mouth because they're curious. And they're going to learn, oh, snap, this lemon is sour. I don't really like this, you know, or I do like this, you know, or don't touch the handle. When I was younger, my first memory is me grabbing my mom's hot iron for her hair. And she told me not to touch it. But in my mind, I look back on that, I remember reaching up and grabbing the barrel and immediately like, oh my gosh, she was right. Like, this is what hot is. This is what burning yourself feels like. You know what I mean? And of course there was that shame because I didn't want to tell her that I hurt myself, but she could clearly see that I was upset about something. And eventually I did tell her and just start crying. And you know, like she loved me, she cared for me, you know what I'm saying? But if there was a, if her reaction was more critical, if it was more, detrimental, it would have broken me, right? I would be afraid to try so many things because, I mean, granted, no, yes, I should listen. I shouldn't have put my hand on the barrel, but that's not the point. It's just that we create the children's reality. And so, yeah, babies are curious and we should be more childlike in that way. We should follow our curiosities, you know, safely. They aren't afraid of failing. We talked about the other day how babies fall all the time. When they're walking, they're so awkward, like they don't know what they're doing. They crawl backwards, you know what I'm saying? And you would think like, oh, this baby's gonna keep falling. They're gonna hate walking. They're not gonna walk anymore. No, they get up over and over and over again and they keep failing. They keep failing because they keep trying. They don't know to be embarrassed, like to fall until we make them embarrassed. They don't know to be afraid of falling until we make them afraid. Like sometimes, yes, babies do scare themselves by falling. But I talked about how when babies fall sometimes, I don't look because if I don't support this, I don't make eye contact because if I don't support this idea that falling is something to be afraid of or you're going to hurt yourself, then babies are usually fine. They look back and they get right back up and they try again. You know what I'm saying? Like they're resilient, and we need to keep that resilience. We need to learn that resilience for ourselves. So yeah, babies don't know to be embarrassed or ashamed. Babies will run around here naked. They don't know. Like, they have no idea, you know? And while there is a good reason why we put diapers on them, right? You know, it's still amazing to me that they don't know shame. They don't know. And some of us carry so much shame in our lives, so much shame that we don't do anything, that we're afraid to live, right? And that is a sad part. That is detrimental. Like, that is heartbreaking. It is unfortunate. You know what I mean? That's the tragedy, that we carry so much shame, and babies have no shame. Children have no shame until we teach them. They're afraid to tell us things because they're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of judgment. They're afraid to, you know what I'm saying? Like, live their lives because of us, because we teach them to be ashamed. They ask hard and powerful questions. Like I said earlier, why not me? Why can't I do this? Why is it impossible for me to do this? They don't judge. Children, like, when they're younger, until someone teaches them that they are better than somebody or less than somebody, or that they're different, they don't judge. They don't know the difference. Like, they'll notice, like, hey, you know, you look different than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, at some point, but they're not judging it. And they're not judging their painting compared to someone else's painting until we show them, hey, Jessica's painting got up on the wall. Why wasn't mine good enough to get up on the wall? Or my sibling's painting is on the fridge. Why wasn't mine on the fridge? Is it not good enough? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is my fridge not good enough? We teach our children, we teach kids to compete. And so you see it in our lives, like, every day, like, we're taught to compete. We're taught to compete for good grades, for a raise, for promotion, for space. You know what I'm saying? Like, this lie that we're taught that there can only be one kind of person in this space. Like, and if they're doing it, you can't do it anymore. You got to find something else. We're taught at a young age to compete and to fight for everything that we have. They're constantly affirmed by their parent or teacher. This is something we can learn to do for ourselves. When a kid is, you know, a baby, and they're drawing things with their fingers, and they're like, look, mom or dad or whoever, or cousin, auntie, whoever, look at this. We're like, oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. That is amazing. Like, we hype them up, and you can see the joy in their face, like, oh my God, I just said something amazing. And as we get older, the less we hear that, we realize, oh, maybe I'm not amazing. Maybe I've been lied to. Like, that's a lie we just tell kids, right? But we would never tell our children, our little baby children, oh, that's not good enough. Do that again, 2-year-old son, like, when your finger paint. No, that's ridiculous. But we do that to ourselves. We don't have that same grace that we have with kids with ourselves. Yeah, like, and while we can't control how people see our art, how people respect our art, respect us, respect our things, how they react to our things, we can control how we treat ourselves. So if you are finger painting, shout out to you. That's amazing, right? Like, that's awesome. If you are trying, we talked about trying, like, if you're taking the first couple of steps, you're winning, you're doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that stuff counts, and that stuff is important. How you speak to yourself matters. How you deal with yourself matters. Like, that stuff is really, really important. Yeah, like, we have to encourage ourselves. Sadly, like, some people will never hear from their parents, oh, I'm so proud of you. And it's sad, it's heartbreaking, but we have to do what we can with how we speak to ourselves, right? We have to unlearn all these critical things people have said to us, and we've repeated and echoed in our heads, because naturally we would not be down on ourselves like that. Naturally, we're probably really prideful, right? We probably like, I'm the bee's knees. There's nothing I can't do. And while you shouldn't be too prideful, right? You should still have pride in what you do. You should still take pride in what you do and celebrate yourself. Let's see. So they play. Children play. Anything is possible with their imaginations. 1 minute they're slaying dragons. The next, like I said, they're professional athletes on the monkey bars. They're creating all these scenarios. They're having a great time. And I feel like we need to get back to playing more, back to having more fun, back to, you know, removing that judgment from ourselves. Yeah. So I have a notebook. Again, I talk about notebooks all the time. I love notebooks. I talk about notebook. Last time, this notebook, I write down all of my dreams. So this is how I'm starting, like, to play. So I'm writing down all these ideas, all these dreams that I have, and I'm giving myself permission to dream them, right? It doesn't mean that I have to do them necessarily, but I'm giving myself to flesh out the ideas instead of always stifling down, like, no, that's not, no, like, that's, we can't do that. No, like, I'm going to write down stuff and say, yes, I can do this. This is possible. Like, I'm giving myself permission to dream big, not dream as big as I can do, or I think I can do, or dream in a way that's comfortable. Like, no, I'm dreaming and being totally 100% honest with myself. This is what I really want. This is what I'm afraid to say that I want. This is what I'm afraid to say that I dream of. This is what I'm afraid to share with my friends. This is what I'm afraid to share with my spouse or, my family. And you can write down your own dreams, like to the 10th, like, what is that big dream of yours, right? And then later on, you can figure out how to do it on a smaller scale, or maybe you just needed to get it out and be like, that was a great idea. And that's okay too. So give yourself permission to dream. Give yourself permission to be a child. Just like we give our children permission to go out and go run around and play and just act a fool and make a mess. We need to give ourselves that same permission, because I really believe nothing changes about us except that we get older and we get conditioned, right? So I do believe that there's a benefit to maturing, but there's also a detriment, like, to our creativity and our fun, because we believe that an adult has to look like this. An adult has to walk around like this or parade around like this. It's like, no. You are you. You were you when you were a child. That's the thing. Like, people will say, like, I got to find myself. Think back to when you were a child. What did you like? What did you enjoy? What were you afraid to share? Like, what were you afraid to share with people that you would do in your room? You know what I'm saying? Were you writing books? Were you playing with action figures and like trying to like act out stories? I was always a writer. I was always a storyteller. I was always singing. You know what I'm saying? And so we'd be like, oh, what do I do? I don't know what to do. You do know what to do. You just been taught that what you want to do you aren't capable of doing, or it's not a viable option for you. Like, it's not rocket science. Who you are is who you were when you were a kid. That's who you are. You're just more mature. You're more mature. You're an adult now. Like, those same interests, a lot of people, like, yes, your interests sometimes change, but sometimes we also fool ourselves and be like, no, I've changed my mind. Have you changed your mind, or are you trying to be more acceptable to other people? You know what I'm saying? Are you trying to be more safe? And for me, I had to go back and be like, Alecia, you always wanted to tell stories. So that's why I have a podcast. That's why I write. That's why I take pictures to tell a story, right? I've always been, and even before then, taking pictures of my family. I love looking back on those photos I took. I love remembering those moments. I always loved singing. Before I could write, I was singing. You know what I'm saying? I was having a great time. My dad had a Casio keyboard, and I would like make up songs. You know, like, I always did this. And it wasn't until I gave myself permission to dream that I was like, okay, this is who I am. Let me stop trying to force myself into these boxes that are, easily digestible, like, to other people. You know what I'm saying? Let me be who God made me to be. So where to begin? Begin, like I said, in your childhood. That's who you truly are. What did you imagine when you were younger? What did you dream of being? What did you enjoy doing? What did you like seeing in other people? Like, why did that teacher stick out to you? What did you like about her? Unlearning the limitations take work, but it's necessary. And that's what I'm trying to do. Like, and the only way to unlearn those limitations is to give yourself permission to try. And like we talked about before, and then give yourself permission to dream. Like I said, in my notebook, I'm free to be all of me. No one else reads this. Like, no, this is just me in this notebook. And I write down what I really, really, really want, not what I want to share because I'm afraid of somebody shutting it down or saying it's not good enough or it's never going to happen. Begin with being honest and with being brave with yourself. Like I said, with this notebook, that's what I'm doing. And protect yourself. If just like children, if I ever have a child and they want to sing, I don't know that I would want them to do singing competitions. I don't know. Honestly, because I don't want them to learn that their voice is something to compete against somebody else's. I don't want them to learn that, someone can dictate how important their gift or their skill or their art is. I don't want them to think themselves better than anybody else. I don't want them to think any less of themselves, right? And so in that same way, maybe you don't need to share your dream with other people yet. Maybe you need to share, like I said, have a group of people that you trust, that you can be honest with, that you can be vulnerable with, and share your dreams with them. First share it with yourself. Give yourself time. Like, write out the real stuff that you want to do. What do you really want your life to look like? Is it what you're doing now? You know what I'm saying? Like, we go through the motions. We do what we can to survive. We do what we can to be accepted. But are we happy? And I don't even mean happy as in like this fleeting feeling. I mean, like, are we full of joy? Are we at peace? Are we content? Is there something that's bugging us like constantly that we're just ignoring because we don't think it's possible? Maybe we should explore those things, And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to unlearn those things because, again, that's the only way to unlearn them is to do them. And so some of that is doing stuff like this, like showing up here, but some of that is also just keeping stuff to myself until I can really process what I really want to do. Because like a plant, right? If you're growing something and it's too weak, you don't want to hang things on the plant because it's going to break, it's going to die, right? It's going to be injured. And just like how we talked about, if you're trying to run a marathon, you need training, you need practice. And if you don't get that practice in, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to hurt yourself. Give yourself the practice, give yourself the time, do little small things. If you're interested in being a painter, take a watercolor class, play with some watercolors or get some acrylics or play with the paints to see what you actually enjoy. Like, do I like watercolor? Do I like acrylic? Do I like, I don't know, something else? You know what I mean? Like, do the fun stuff for yourself first and then move forward. So the idea today is just to be more childlike, be a child. Sorry about the video going out earlier. We're back though. But yes, like, how can you be more childlike? What is your childhood dream? Tell me, let me know. Like, again, like I said, I did want to be an actress. Do I think I can still do it? Maybe, if I put the practice in, you know what I'm saying? But I think what called to me more was writing, telling stories, sharing other people's stories. I had this tape and I want to find it so bad. I interviewed my great grandmother and I interviewed her about like her life and growing up and stuff. And I have always been interested in other people's stories. That has always been a thing for me. And I'm seeing it now, even on the podcast, talking to people. I'm really interested. Like, what is your story? Tell me everything. Tell me everything there is to know about you, right? That stuff has not changed. Again, when we go to college, if you have gone to college or even high school, they make you focus on one thing. And you might be passionate. You might have things that you want to explore. And then we're forced by 16, 15, maybe, to decide what we want to do with the rest of our lives. And most of that is dictated by what we see, what people say we're capable of, and, the access to resources that we have. And it's unfortunate. But I just want you to think like a child. Just take like the small steps. I'm not saying leave your job. I'm not saying, forsake everything, all responsibilities, because you do have responsibilities. But really be as kind to yourself as you would your own child. When your child would come to you and tell you, hey, I want to be a singer, what would you do to cultivate that in them? What would you do to engage with them? You wouldn't shut them down. And good, parents who care would not shut the child down and be like, no, that's trash. You're a horrible singer. No, like, we talk to ourselves like that all the time. And so I'm just saying, have more grace with yourself, have more empathy, and imagine yourself as a child. Imagine those dreams that pop up, those ideas as a child, and give them room and space to have fun and to play, whether it's writing it on a notebook or calling a friend and sharing that idea with them. So I'm grateful for my group of people that I can share with. And I hope that you have one of your own and practice those little moments of courage. And like I said, it'll build your courage muscle and you'll be adding momentum to what you want to do. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for coming back. I hope that you guys have a wonderful week, have a wonderful Monday. And until tomorrow, I will talk to you guys